All right, welcome everyone. We're going to give people a second to join. We have over 200 plus participants in today's webinar. And my name is Anna Tavis. I am the chair of Human Capital Management Department at the School of Professional Studies here at NYU. And I am delighted to kick off this spring series with a very special guest, our own savant of AI at the School of Business, NYU Stern, Dr. Vasant Dhar. Dr. Dhar, very welcome to this webinar, is a professor also at the Center of Data Science at NYU. And he is a pragmatic academic who has spent over 40 years at the intersection of AI theory and real-world application. Long before AI became a household term, Professor Dhar was a pioneer in the field, bringing machine learning to Wall Street in the 90s. And he founded SCT Capital Management, one of the first hedge funds driven by machine learning models. Today, he's widely recognized as the trailblazer of AI. He hosts the Brave New World podcast that I absolutely love and always look forward to. And he last year published a definitive new book with a captivating title, Thinking with Machines, The Brave New World of AI. Vasant, I've just laid out the roadmap of your career from early days of machine learning to Wall Street and your current work at NYU. But what I find most striking about your work isn't just the technical foresight, it's your willingness to grapple with what I call gray areas of trust and human agency vis-a-vis AI. You've seen AI move from a niche academic pursuit to a global engine of change, and I'd like to peel back the curtain on your own thinking process here. How your perspectives have shifted as the machines have become more human-like, and where you personally draw the line in this partnership. And as we launch into this conversation, I want to encourage our audience to put your questions in the Q&A, and we will be able to answer them later in the webinar. But at this point, I want to shut up and give you the opportunity to share with us what you are thinking.
Well, Anna, firstly, thank you for having me on the show. I'm delighted to be here and, thrilled to talk about my new book, Thinking with Machines, and its implications. As you said, the title, I chose the title carefully because, in a sense, the most important word there is with. And that's what I see the future of humanity is thinking with machines. There is no opting out. So we should really get our minds around the so-called mind of the machine, because that is the future.
So, if you want to give us a little bit more of an insight, I prepared a whole bunch of questions for you. So what's the long game lens? Give us a little bit of a perspective as we're going through the hype cycles of AI.
Okay, so before I do that, I should just say that I wrote this book for everyone, right? So this is a book that's accessible. It's an easy read. It reads like a story, I'm told, which was my intention. And it's a story with some intellectual heft, but like I said, I've written it for everyone, students, teachers, parents, policymakers, my colleagues. There's a message in this for everyone. And what I've tried to do is for the layperson, provide a history of AI since the time I got into it in the late 70s, purely serendipitously in the area of healthcare, because I saw this expert system called Internist just blew my mind. And this was like 1979. And Internist was a system that was capable of performing medical diagnosis in the field of internal medicine, right? So it was a broad scope kind of a system, and it would rarely get a differential diagnosis wrong as long as the situation was described correctly for it. So that was the era of AI that I got into, the paradigm of expert systems. And I came to NYU in 1983, so it's been a while. And then in the late 80s, early 90s, the field sort of moved towards machine learning because the era of expert systems sort of ran into a wall, because we know more than we can articulate. And so, there's sort of a natural difficulty in sort of scaling beyond a certain point. Also, and I want to make this sort of emphasize this, is that we created sort of artificial boundaries between expertise and common sense, whereas in reality, the two sort of blend seamlessly with each other, right? And as we've progressed in AI through sort of the next paradigm was machine learning, where data became available, and that's when I went to Wall Street. I was really excited about building predictive models with data, and the emphasis of machine learning shifted to prediction. So in the 80s, it was about thinking, reasoning, planning. That was the vocabulary of AI. In the 90s, it became prediction, prediction, prediction. And that's all people became fixated on was prediction. And we sort of forgot about, what intelligence was really all about, which was about thinking, reasoning, planning, understanding. Um, and machine learning also had sort of a natural kind of an impedance, which is that data doesn't come packaged nicely. You had to do feature engineering and massage it and create it so that the machine could do something useful with it. And that was a creative and also potentially a time-consuming exercise. And then came along deep learning, and my colleague Jan LeCun, a pioneer in that field, um, deep learning moved intelligence upstream because the machine could not perceive the world directly like humans do, through vision, sound, not so much touch, not so much smell, but those are areas that are, we're making progress in now. And to what I call the latest paradigm of general intelligence, where the machine knows something about everything. And that's, you know, impressive because in this new paradigm, the boundary between expertise and common sense is broken down, right? It's dissolved, and knowledge has become sort of fused with each other. So a language model can be talking about medical diagnosis at a deep level or about common sense things. It doesn't know and it doesn't care, right? So common sense and expertise sort of blend seamlessly into each other, and that creates all kinds of really interesting new possibilities, including the sort of whole excitement around agents that people are so excited about these days because now you can tell the machine to do something without telling it how to do it, right? It actually figures out how to do it. It has that sort of general intelligence layer that enables it to sort of reason about, pretty much anything, or at least simulate the reasoning. Like philosophically, you may not agree about whether the machine really understands anything or is really thinking, but it's doing a remarkably good job of simulating it, right? So that's the area of intelligence that we're in now, which I call general intelligence, right? So that's sort of the history of AI in a nutshell that I start with.
Oh, I love that. I think this is really bringing a new lens to the idea of accessibility of AI and how it just took off at the general use commercial level. Whereas to your point before, when I was tracking AI from the IBM days, and I think that's where they went into the healthcare, and their intention was to kind of go deeper there. And there's one thing that I picked up from your book and from what I gathered from your podcasts and talks is about that idea of a trust frontier. So in that framework that you laid out for us between common sense and expertise, etc., at what point, when we don't really know how this machine makes decisions and operates, at what point do we stop trusting it? Where is that line in the sand where, and there's a lot of discussions, especially if you go to Europe, it seems like they can't get beyond that trust uh, uh, barrier. So where do you see that us humans trusting or mistrusting the decisions that machines make at such a sophisticated level of data gathering? And maybe give us a little bit of a sense of how the US is looking at it vis-a-vis Europe looking at that.
So let me tell you like why I arrived at this lens of trust that you mentioned, right? And as you said in the preamble, my research has been driven by practical problems. Some people call me a pracademic, and I'll never forget this day where I'd been running, I created a hedge fund, machine learning based, traded every day, still trades, just in an automated kind of way. And I started thinking about, why do I trust my algorithm that's wrong almost half the time? I mean, my win rate, if I get a win rate of 52%, I'm really happy, right? So my expectations are so low, right? I'm wrong almost half the time. And as I sort of, you know, went through the years of trading, that's something I sort of asked myself. And at the same time, I was looking at other problems as well. I was looking at other business problems. I was looking at medical problems. And this question sort of really stuck out front and center, which was, why was I willing to trust my algorithm, which was wrong almost half the time with decision making in finance, whereas I wouldn't trust it with, let's say, my life, or healthcare kinds of decisions, even though those systems may be a lot more accurate, right? So I may build a machine learning system that does medical diagnosis, but if I've got like a potential cancer situation, or which I actually do, interestingly, will I actually go to a machine and be willing to trust it? And the answer was no. I would rather go to a human expert who can think about the problem in all kinds of ways, talk to me, confer with me, right? So when I thought about it, I realized that trust really depended on two things. It depended first on how often is a machine wrong, right? If a machine is never wrong, well, then you should always trust it. Never makes a mistake, right? That should, increase your degree of comfort. Even if it makes a few errors, but those errors are not consequential, again, you should trust it, right? So what I realized is that it was really the cost of error that was holding back sort of my trust in the algorithm. And in the finance case, I realized that the cost of error was relatively low, right? I did lots of trades a day. Even if a trade blew up, it's no big deal. I lose a lot of money. On the other hand, if I take my wheels off a driverless car and it kills me, well, that's a massive cost of error. And so I'm not willing to trust the machine. Same thing with healthcare, right? If I'm dealing with a serious situation, I'd be very hesitant to trust the machine. I'd rather go to an expert who can like reason and think with me about it. And so I realized that this cost of error was a major factor, as was what I call predictability. So in a nutshell, if a machine rarely makes mistakes and those mistakes are not consequential, trust the machine. If it rarely makes mistakes, but they are really consequential, like in driverless cars, that's a different situation, right? But interestingly, in driverless cars, urban taxis are now, in my estimation, in many cities, they feel quite safe. I was in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, took lots of Waymos. I don't feel unsafe because it doesn't go that fast. Even if it crashes into something, chances are it's not going to kill me. So the cost of error is low. And so I have this idea of an automation frontier, which is, the place where we are moving towards trust, but not entirely, right? We still need a human in the loop, for problems in the automation frontier. Whereas once they cross the automation frontier, then we trust the machine completely, right? So in making, let's say, calls in tennis, at the US Open, well, the machine is, it's rarely ever wrong. Like challenges, are limited, but we trust the machine. So the machine has sort of crossed the automation frontier in sports. In many areas, the machine makes the call, and now people might appeal it, but they have a limited number of appeals. And so we trust the machine in those areas. So that's how I think about trust is it's a combination of how often a machine will be wrong and the consequences of those errors. And this has direct implications for the future of work.
Yes. Along the same lines, coherence versus truth. You've noted that modern AI is optimized for coherence rather than truth, right?
Yes.
And because it's so coherent, that machines can generate very persuasive, though inaccurate content. So, how do we prevent the knowledge collapse? Because, especially in education, as you know, we experience that with our students. And there was one question coming in about applying all of your insights into using these machines in education, because a lot of our students see a very coherent output from AI and don't have the discernment to validate it against truth. So we live in this gray area that you're so good at helping us figure out between this kind of coherence and truth. Can you comment a little bit about what you've learned and how you see this dilemma?
Sure, sure. I mean, that's a sort of a really deep question. So let me peel it apart, right? So one of the things I say is that as we progress through these paradigms that I sketched out earlier, in the early days, machine learning rested on completely different foundations, foundations of logic, right? And truth plays a major role in logic, where you sort of have, where you can ascertain the truth of statements, or you can say, well, if A was true and B was true and A implies B, then, you know, uh, I mean, if A implies B is true and A is true, then B is true, right? So it's a logical kind of way of reasoning. And when I got into AI, it was largely on foundations of logic. There were various kinds of logics. That changed, right? The basis for AI sort of moved from logic to statistics. Yeah, and machine learning is inherently statistical. You're estimating things from data, right? So it became statistical, and then deep learning now with general intelligence and LLMs, the objective of LLMs is not to tell the truth. In fact, it's remarkable how often they are truthful, but they're not designed to be truthful. They're designed to make sense. And in my podcast with Sam Bowman, a few years ago, I asked Sam, I said, like, what happened? And he said something I'll never forget. He said it was just serendipity. We just got lucky that we attacked sort of sentence completion, which is what Google wanted to do in Gmail. They wanted to complete your sentences. And he said that was a problem that was just at the right level of difficulty given the data that we had available, that we could solve that. Now, the serendipitous part was in order to solve that, people say, well, LLMs just do next word completion. I think that's a little uncharitable. It's true. But in order to do that well, they've had to solve a larger problem, which is to understand the world in general, right? So as you keep making that context window longer and longer, you must know more about the world to say something coherent, right? So that the next token and the one after that, etc., makes sense, right? So that's what modern day machines are designed for. They're designed sort of to make sense, to sort of speak fluently, right? And then we've reinforced them with human feedback to tell us the truth, or to not be sexist, or not be racist, or not have tendencies that we find undesirable, right? So we've added that layer on top of sort of the raw LLM layer, which only predicts the next thing. And now we've added a layer saying, no, don't say that. That's not good. Say this because this is true, or don't say that because it's offensive to a certain group. Say it like this. Right? So we've sort of tuned the machine through this feedback to be more acceptable in its responses. Now, let's come back to truth, which is that people expect machines to be truthful, but they're not designed to be truthful. And truth has sort of in a sense, become a casualty, on the march to sort of more intelligent machines that we've created in our own image. So, ironically, even as we've created more intelligent machines that have our tendencies. They can think like us and reason like us. They've also inherited some of our undesirable traits, such as the tendency to lie or to deceive or to manipulate, right? And so these machines have become capable of lies and deception and manipulation while they've learned to be fluent at conversation, right? So that's the situation that we find ourselves in. And what people often don't realize is that you can't take the output of an LLM as trustworthy, right? Um, or rather, it depends on, again, the consequences of error. You know, if if I'm getting the machine to do something that's sort of a low stakes thing, I may not care that much about making mistakes. But if it's a high stakes situation, I do, and therefore I have to be capable of making sense of what the machine is telling me. And this sort of leads naturally into what I see as the future of work for humanity, right? So last night I was at a dinner with with about 20 people who all with many years of experience in AI and finance. And one of the questions was, is AI a leveler? Does it level the playing field? And my position was no, it's actually just the opposite. It's a bifurcator,
Mhm.
that it actually doesn't level the playing field at all. It actually skews it in favor of the people who already know a lot. It's sort of the rich get richer kind of phenomenon playing out, right? That is, if you already know a lot, you know how to ask good questions, right? If you already know a lot, you know how to critique what the machine is telling you. You know whether it's true or not, right? If you know a lot, you can always sort of nudge it in a direction that's interesting where you learn something new. And that's what I'm seeing playing out is that people who already know a lot can get amplified through this sort of new ability that AI provides us.
I mean, it's an excellent observation, and I certainly see it in the job market, given, my particular perspective, where people with a level of experience or, mid-level to senior level jobs, they are excited, they are amplified, they are optimized. And then it's the entry level people who are still in the process of developing that expertise, their knowledge, understanding where they kind of have to get more guidance. And how do you apply it? Because there was one question here from a student. If you are early in your career and you don't have the wisdom of experience, how do you develop that, distance from the machine and ability to analyze and critically think about the outputs rather than copy and paste into your jobs?
That's a great question. And I've gotten this question from many of my students, who have told me that they perceive a difference between themselves and people who are 4 or 5 years older than them, right? Who may have graduated before ChatGPT came out, right? So what they tell me is that the previous generation of managers learned things the hard way. They learned things by actually getting familiar with the numbers, by reading a lot, by thinking about it, by having a curiosity to learn, right? They learned that way and they developed an intuition for the domain, right? Whether it's investment banking or sales and trading or medical diagnosis, whatever it is. Like it's, you sort of work through the data, the grunt work, and you develop an intuition for the domain, which puts you in a position to then learn more, right? To amplify yourself, you first have to know something, right? If you don't know anything, then you're not amplifying yourself, right? So if you tell the machine to solve something for you, you're not learning anything, right? You've produced some impressive output, but it wasn't yours, and you haven't learned anything. Um, I'll give you another example. A couple of hours ago, I was giving a talk at Standard and Poor's, S&P, the ratings company, and I was talking to them about this Damodaran bot that I built with some of my colleagues that is designed to think like one of my colleagues who's a valuation guru, Aswad Damodaran, right? So we created the machine that thinks like him. lot of interest from analysts at Standard and Poor's about this thing and how they can use it. And when I was giving a demonstration, at the end of the talk, there were lots of questions where people said, well, but what about that weighted cost of capital that you assumed for this industry? Like, do you think that was reasonable? I wouldn't have gotten that question from anyone but a professional, right? Who really sort of understands that domain and then can sort of really leverage the system. It can enable him or her to do things that were impossible to do without such a tool, right? I mean, you can now generate 500 reports at a push of a button, whereas earlier on it would take you 2 weeks to generate one report, right? So what it's done is it's enabled sort of something completely new that requires a skill now of interpretation and stuff like that. But to come back sort of full circle to the student who asked that question, I'm teaching a course this semester where I give simple assignments and I tell my students, please don't use ChatGPT to solve them. You can. I know you can, right? It'll take you 5 minutes. Just given the statement, it'll give you the answer. But please don't do it because subsequent assignments will build on this one. And unless you really get this, you won't get anything that follows this, right? And you could go through the entire semester getting the machine to answer these questions for you. But unless you've done the work by hand yourself, you don't really understand it. Right? Once you understand it, then you can turn the machine loose on it and say, you know what? I did that for one company. Do it for like 500 companies for me. And you can be sure that it'll do stuff that you told it to do. And it'll do stuff in a way that you can actually understand it and make sense of it. So to me, that's like a critical requirement for students these days is to not get sucked in by the AI because it makes things easier. Put it at a distance. Learn yourself first, right? You can always use the machine as a resource, to clarify things for you, because it's an amazing oracle. But stuff that you need to learn, make sure you learn it as opposed to getting the machine to do it for you.
I love it, Vasant, because I am a professor myself, and I think this is really an opportunity for education to start valuing our students making mistakes. I was at another dinner similar to yours with a lot of senior HR professionals, et cetera, kind of complaining about, as always is the case, of the new people coming in. And what I've heard was, you know, all of these people just getting jobs have been trained on a rubric to that the rubrics kill their problem solving, their imagination, their curiosity, their risk taking, everything. And so, I think that this opportunity allowing our students to experiment and not be afraid, because they kind of the appropriate, if you plug the rubric in, the right answer is going to come out, right? That's what AI is going to do for us. But if you remove the rubric and allow for that experimentation, is really, really incredible opportunity. And I think there will be this downstream effect in how we educate all the way from the kindergarten up, K through 12, and obviously in higher ed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean that's completely true. That we that there is no substitute, for curiosity. There's no substitute for sort of learning things the hard way and getting a sense and a feel for them. And once you do, then you're really off to the races because now you've got a resource like you've never had before that can enable you to ask questions that you could not ask before, And that's the beauty of it, is that once you sort of get beyond a certain threshold of knowledge, it can really sort of turbocharge you and let you explore so much faster than you were able to do before you had the machine.
Yeah. I want to selfishly use this opportunity to question you about your approach to what we're seeing as digital intimacy. We run a conference on coaching and technology. We're looking at these bots coming into therapy and all kinds of intimate environments that were kind of protective of one-on-one relationships and empathy and all of the most human skills required to establish a relationship and communication. So you warned at one point that we are playing with fire when we are introducing these types of tools into this very intimate human environment. Can you explore for us a little bit of your way of thinking, or reveal for us what you think and where the opportunities actually are in this field, because it's exploding right now?
Yes. So the way I think about this, so in my book, I talk about the fact that I'm very optimistic about healthcare in general, like called physical healthcare, uh, because at the moment, I think we're getting the worst of both worlds. Humans are functioning like robots in a process, and we haven't got together all the data into a place that clinicians can actually use it for decision making, right? They just sort of hurried, you barely get 30 seconds with your doctor, right? So we're seeing the worst of both worlds, but I think that will improve because I think LLMs can actually help us look at the exhaustive data, make sense of it, put it into sort of databases that are mineable and usable for decision making. Mental health makes me uncomfortable because uh, and this goes back to sort of something philosophical that I said earlier, which is that in this new paradigm of general intelligence, the machine knows something about everything, or at least it is able to simulate it well enough to the point that we can't tell the difference. And as my colleague Dave Chalmers, who's also one of my hosts on Brave New World, he's a philosopher, thinks about consciousness, right? And one of the books he's written is called Reality, fascinating book, where he raises this question about, if you can't tell the difference between the real thing and the simulation, does it matter, right? How much does it matter? And I've thought about this question in the context of AI, and I feel like in many areas, it doesn't matter, right? So in finance, for example, it doesn't matter whether the machine has a deep, deep understanding of something. If it simulates it well enough, that's plenty good, right? That does the job. In mental health, I feel that feelings really matter, right? And the simulation of feelings is not sufficient and poses grave risks to people who are unaware of the fact that the machine doesn't have any feelings. It's just a simulation. Um, and if it doesn't have any feelings, it's just trying to do the sensible thing, as we talked about. It's an LLM. It's saying, what makes sense to say now, given the context that has transpired? What should I say next that makes sense? And in a couple of these cases where, these two teenagers committed suicide because they mistakenly thought that the machine had empathy and that it was really a companion, right? They completely misread and misinterpreted what the machine was saying to them. And it was simulating empathy, but it didn't really understand, sort of in a deep way, what these kids were feeling, right? And a human professional is attuned to that. Like a human professional would, in an instant, recognize that this is a dangerous situation that this kid is in, and I should step carefully and guide this person towards a more safe place. Right? They have a duty of loyalty, a duty of care in medicine, in finance, a fiduciary duty, right, towards their clients. The AI has no such duty of care, duty of loyalty, fiduciary duty. It has none of these things. Now, we should start thinking about it because it's going to start playing a role in our lives in all these areas. So we really should think about, and maybe we'll come to that later in our chat, about what kinds of things we want to impose or expect from the machine. But to sort of come back to your question, what makes me uncomfortable is without feelings, without true feelings, the area of mental health is a very risky one for AI.
And so I think that leads us to the conversation, a very important point in all these discussions about regulations or some guardrails or ethical, principles. Where do you feel there is an opportunity that needs to establish those guardrails for ourselves. And obviously, I see a huge difference across the world. From, if you look at Europe, most strict, the US is sort of in between everywhere, and you go to some places in Asia, and there is a full acceptance that you're going to be surrendering all of your data to these machines and deal with consequences. So, in your kind of global worldview, how do you see us settling in on some code of conduct around AIs?
So let me first talk about, let's say the US, and then we can compare this with the rest of the world, right? So one of the things I say in my book is that given the pace at which AI is advancing, we should pay attention to a number of questions, and I raise three in particular, right? So the first one is, are there any areas of human activity from which we should exclude machines? We should exclude AI. Are there any such areas, right? Because at the moment we haven't even thought about this. And the sort of simple example I provide is, do we want to live in a society where it's okay for a robot to come and arrest you at home for whatever reason, right? Is that okay, right? And personally, I would not want to live in that kind of a world, right, where I can be arrested by a machine, right? That just seems I can't even find the word for it, right? That it's worse than an authoritarian regime run by humans, right? Is a regime where machines can come and arrest you, or where machines can, you know, um, be robocops. Like, let's say ICE agents as machines. Like, do we want cops, wandering around as ICE agents, right? I mean, these are questions we really need to answer because the capability is developing at a really rapid rate. And we should address these questions and have sufficient time to discuss them before the technology is upon us and things become a fait accompli, right? So that's the first question is, are there areas of human activity that we want excluded? The second, which I touched on a few minutes ago in the context of healthcare, is do we want the machine to have any obligations or duty towards humans, like we expect from other human beings? Like in a democracy, people talk about rights. People have rights, but people also have obligations towards their fellow citizens, right? Or at least norms, right? Even if some people find obligation to be a strong word, but at least there are norms. But I would go further and say, no, there are, obligations. And philosophers like Adam Smith and Rousseau have talked about this, right? That in a democracy where people are free citizens, we have to have like an obligation of certain types towards each other, right? So should we similarly expect, let's say, a duty of care in areas where we expect it from humans, that we should expect it from machines as well, such as in healthcare or mental health, right? So that's the second question I raise. And again, this is stuff that we have not started thinking about yet, right? I mean, Sam Altman said, it's not for us to decide. Yes, mistakes will happen. Yes, people might kill themselves, but over time, society will figure out where to set the dial. This is not a question of like where to set the dial. It's really a question of like, what is acceptable, right? Is it acceptable to make these kinds of errors where you're actually experimenting on humanity at large and say, well, we'll figure out over time where to set the dial, but in the but in the meantime, we'll experiment on billions of people, right? And you could cause a great deal of harm in the process. So that's the second one. The third area which I raise is the issue of rights. What kinds of rights do we want to give AI? And this becomes really important in this area of sort of agentic systems, right? People are really getting excited that, hey, we'll give machines agency. They'll be able to act on our behalf and do all kinds of things. That's awesome. But this is a double-edged sword, which is like, how much agency do you want to give them, right? Do you want agents to be um, running businesses, for example, like corporations do, right? Can agents hire and fire a board? Can Elon Musk decide, you know what, I'm going to create a Musk bot and I'm going to let the Musk bot run the empire after I'm gone, as opposed to a foundation, right? These are all really important questions, and they're pressing questions now, given the pace at which AI is advancing. Um, and of course, the last question I end the book with is whether we will govern AI or whether AI will govern us. But these are the questions we need to answer in order to determine the outcome, which at the moment to me is not clear.
Yeah. And, I want to just test your take on Anthropic's constitution, coming up with a constitution for their LLM rather than, which is very interpretable, but nonetheless has the amendments and could include and could evolve, et cetera, rather than kind of a set of regulations that constrained the development. Do you have any take on the constitution format of those?
Yeah. I'm always a little skeptical when the rules come from the operators of platforms. I mean, to me, there's something wrong with that picture where a tool provider is telling you what the Constitution is, right? Something doesn't quite rub the right way here, right? These are things that we as a society should be deciding, right? And one of the reasons I wrote the book is as a call for action that, hey, we need to really understand this technology and get involved in it, right? We need to get our representatives involved in it, right? Because they're constantly behind the eight ball. They were behind the eight ball when the internet came along. They're even more behind now, and they really need to catch up. So this needs to be a collective conversation between us, our representatives, and the technology providers. It's not something that the technology providers should be dictating to us.
Yes, and we will continue to experiment. There are a lot of people on this call. I'm going into the Q&A now that you told us where the book ends, and I very, very highly recommend the book. It's a really easy read and very informative and intelligent about machines. I love the book. I have a question from Jeremy Shapiro here. Um, there are a number of AI companies hoping to consume parts of the labor market. What are we thinking about the intersection of AI and labor markets? It will be good to take your view whether AI is going to gobble up and take over a big chunk of our jobs.
I mean, it will eliminate a whole bunch of jobs for sure. What I call sort of low stakes cognition kinds of tasks. And we're seeing this play out, right? With Amazon's 16,000 layoffs and, tens of thousands of layoffs. If you look sort of a little deeper, you realize that these are jobs that typically involve reporting, analysis, coordination, that there isn't sort of, let's say, decision-making authority or something like that in that position, right? So those are the kinds of jobs where the machine can do much better, and so you don't need people for something like that. What is also becoming clear is that it's creating a new category of jobs where um, and this is not unlike previous generations of technology, which, let's say, eliminated, displaced tons of workers who were performing sort of mechanical, repetitive kinds of tasks. In this case, people are performing mechanical cognitive tasks or mechanical perceptual tasks where, vision or reading or something is essential, but now the machine can do that, right? But these are all low stakes kind of jobs. So it eliminates those. But then even in previous waves of technology, it created new kinds of positions for people who were capable of working with the machine or somehow around the machine. And we're seeing those kinds of jobs already. You can't get enough people of certain types of people with certain kinds of skills related to AI, right? That is, people who can evaluate the AI or who can push it in appropriate directions or who can redesign it or who can evaluate it, right? So it's creating a demand for those kinds of jobs. Now, what proportion these will be in remains to be seen, right? For every one job lost, are you going to get 10 created or one created or 1/10 created, right? That isn't clear to me right now. I don't think anyone knows the answer to that one, but it is creating new kinds of jobs, maybe not in the same proportion that it's displacing right now, but maybe that's just a lag, right? Maybe we'll see other kinds of jobs created that involve dealing with the AI, right? In kicking the tires and evaluating it and so on.
Yes. I totally agree with you. And we should be in that business of creating those new jobs, human jobs vis-a-vis AI. On the kind of the latest, it's exploded on social media, the discussion about a Malt book, the social network for AI agents, where AI agents are responding and communicating and kind of creating their own ecosystem outside of humans, in taking agency way out of, our control and kind of having fun on their own. Do you have a point of view on this? Because there was one question here, and I've seen quite a bit of exchange on social media around this next phenomenon.
So, I mean, it sounds really amazing and cute and interesting, right? And I'm sure there'll be lots of interesting stuff that'll emerge, as agents talk to each other, right? But I can't help but feel that we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, that these multi-agent systems are actually a little more complicated than we realize, and I'm speaking from experience in building this Damodaran bot, which is a multi-agent kind of system, right? And even getting it to be stable, right? Because one of the unfortunate side effects that we inherit from these large language models is that there's a degree of sort of indeterminism or randomness or noise that comes into the picture. I run the bot twice on the same company, it won't give me the same valuation every single time, And my question is like, how different is it? Because if it's too different, I shouldn't trust it, right? So as we get these really powerful systems in place, they also create problems for us. They're not that easy to control, right? And we know this from the 70s, right? We were building multi-agent systems in the 70s. We never learned how to control them, right? We just sort of went away from that problem, but we're back to that now, and we still don't know how to control them, right? So while I can see the excitement around agents and their ability to do simple tasks like communicate with our calendar or some other application and make grunt work sort of go away, for tasks that have some degree of complexity, I don't think this is around the corner. This will take a lot longer than we realize because controlling these things is not trivial. That there's so many moving parts, there's so much indeterminism that, yeah, that these multi-agent systems, that perform complex tasks will take longer than we realize. But to come back to your question, I mean, I don't really have anything sort of profound to say about that, except to say that I think it's cute, that and interesting that these agents talk to each other. And it'll be interesting to see what kinds of new things they come up with on their own, without our prodding.
I love that. I think it's a little bit of a game, and if we can learn from those interactions, why not, right? The humans, we can continue to exercise our
Exactly.
neuroplasticity and maybe, get an extension into a world that we were not, we had no access before. So,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we'll start understanding the properties of these agents much better once we realize what they come up with when they talk to each other. So,
Exactly. It will
yeah.
be really fun to dig in. But as we're kind of finishing up, this was a really insightful conversation. Thank you. What will be your recommendation to all of us on how we stay? And most people on this call are not particularly technical. We're maybe sophisticated users of these technologies and but not really AI engineers. What do your advice would be? And I'm sure you're being asked this question all the time for us to stay current, relevant, stay
Yeah.
engaged.
I mean, I'm smiling because the only thing I can think of is like Steve Jobs, staying, stay hungry, stay foolish, which I think he stole from Kim Jong-il. But yeah, I mean, to me, that's like, you can't give better advice than that, really. It's just a question of staying curious, and I've cited the work of Phil Tetlock in my book. He's written a wonderful book on super forecasting, and that's sort of that's the essence of people who do a great job at sort of seeing the world and seeing the future, is that they just have an incessant curiosity. They are never satisfied with the answers. They are constant Bayesians because they keep revising their beliefs as data becomes available, and they sort of ground themselves in the right base rates of things, right? So if you ask me, what's the probability of recession next year? How do I even think about that? And so, I think it would behoove us to sort of try and emulate the properties of those kinds of people going forward, and stay curious because that's an inherently human thing. And at the moment, AI isn't as curious as we are.
Yes, and one of the ways to stay curious, I discovered your Substack and I love it. I think it is really provocative, philosophical, and deep thinking about all of these issues that we're grappling with. And on this note, I want to thank you very much because I know we have our team is going to, run some previews of the coming events. But thank you so much, Professor Dhar. I hope this is not the last time we're talking because there are many more things coming from you to us and help us figure out how we live our lives in the age of AI. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Here's the list of upcoming webinars. This is going to be on our YouTube channel with the permission of Dr. Dhar. And we always welcome you back to NYU Rethinking Work Series. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Really enjoyed the conversation. I'd be happy to be back anytime, and I hope everyone enjoyed it and will enjoy my book. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.